As the economy teeters on the brink of collapse, Pakistan continues to hurtle toward an uncertain future, led by an utterly unserious elite unable to grasp the enormity of the challenges facing the country. For political scientists, Pakistan is an excellent case study to highlight the tragedy of military-dominated governments specifically, and authoritarian ones more generally. There is widespread consensus among scholars that representative democracy, while not flawless, imbues states with a greater chance of long-term political stability than its alternatives. Of course, not everyone shares this belief. Indeed, many associate the fractiousness, unpredictability, and pendulum swings of democratic systems as inherently unstable. A benevolent dictator, goes the folk wisdom, can lead a country to its full potential better than bitterly divided partisans in parliament can. Pakistan's military is no stranger to such paternalistic thinking. Doubtless, its deep and abiding control of the country comes with instrumental benefits, land, status, golf club memberships, and other perks. But at its root, the military's influence over, and interference in, politics since at least the 1950s stems from the supercilious belief that the bloody civilians, the corrupt, venal, short-sighted, and principle-free lot of politicians, if left to their own devices will mire the country in a state of permanent chaos. The army has repeatedly acted on this condescension for the constitution, launching coups and officially running the country for half its existence. The other half? If anything, in such periods the army has been more nefarious, pulling strings seen and unseen, controlling its imperatives, security and foreign policy primarily, but not exclusively, and casting an imposing shadow. Times of nominal democracy in Pakistan, though few and far between, are remarkable for a degree of military influence over politics that would make Samuel P. Huntington blush. Whether directly in power or stage managing events from behind a curtain, the military has sought order. The tragic irony of its quest, however, is the extent to which it has sown chaos. As scholars of democracy know, the greatest payoff of democratic systems is not fast economic growth or progressive social policies, but rather the certainty that the transfer of power from one government to another will be peaceful and predictable. Pakistan, by contrast, sees transitions that are anything but. This is a country where governments have ended with the loss of half the country in a genocidal civil war, 1971, a mysterious plane crash killing the president, 1988, midnight coups, daytime coups, and backroom deal-making among factionalized elites. This list connotes many things, but orderliness is not one of them. As a proximate cause, this is a crisis fundamentally about debt. Pakistan owes billions of dollars to creditors. Russia's invasion of Ukraine meant that the dollar price of fuel, which makes up a quarter of Pakistan's import bill, shot up. At the same time, the currency has lost 30% of its value since 2021, meaning that everything Pakistan imports, not to mention its debt, has suddenly gotten considerably more expensive. A vicious cycle of currency depreciation, increased debt, and decreased confidence that the debt can be repaid has been set in motion. Many economists are seriously concerned that Pakistan may default. Whether it can avoid such an eventuality depends greatly on the extent and speed of IMF support, which in turn rests on how willing countries such as Saudi Arabia or China are to bail Islamabad out, whether in the form of debt forgiveness, restructuring, or plain old cash. But even in the best-case scenario, the solution of IMF, Saudi, or Chinese money only kicks the can down the road. Pakistan's debt problem is not going away, nor is its reliance on bailouts from stronger or richer countries. Its elite, as well as the entrepreneurial middle classes, do not pay taxes. The primary path to wealth is dominating rent-seeking sectors of the economy, such as land or sugar. Successive governments have favored short-term, populist fixes, such as keeping the exchange rate artificially inflated, PMLN, or the price of fuel artificially deflated, PTI, to keep the country's consumption-driven economy going. Suffice it to say, the bill for such measures has come due. This much should now be clear. Waiting for a superpower to invade Afghanistan is not a sustainable strategy for economic development. Pakistan's growth, and the well-being of its citizens, cannot continue to rest on the largesse of major powers and the contingencies of geopolitical alliances. Pakistan's political and economic crises are connected. While the political upheaval and regime change have not directly caused the economic turmoil, they have certainly exacerbated it, showing investors and creditors that Pakistan is presently an unserious, irresponsible polity. At a time when the country needs all hands on deck, its political elite is caught in narrow power games, such as an ongoing political judicial struggle over which party is in power in Punjab, the biggest province, and when, precisely, the next general elections will be held. So what now? There are essentially two views on the question of whether this episode marks an inflection point. The first is rooted in a been there done that cynicism. In this more pessimistic view, history shows that the people will forgive and forget soon enough. The second, more optimistic view holds that today the army is on the firing line as it has never been before. Historically, the urban upper and middle classes have cheered on the military's outsized role in politics, and tended to be quite receptive to its messaging decrying corrupt politicians and internal and external security threats, both real and perceived.